when I graduated, I started working for Macy's. Macy's had an executive development program, which was a manager rotational program. And their credit and customer service division, finance, accounting, human resources were all headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Absolutely, yep.
And so I started working there, and I said, I'll be here for a year or two.
A minute.
Like all of at that point, everyone was talking about how millennials were bouncing around jobs, right? Like you couldn't keep a millennial in a job.
That's right.
And so I said, all right, well, this is cool, and I know these people, and it'll help me get settled, and then I'll move to some city where I really want to be. Which was not Cincinnati. And I had first was the recession happened.
Oh, yeah.
So 2008, 2009 came after that. There were no jobs anywhere.
Right,
and so it was like, you have a job, you better stay put, right?
Like, stay up in that job, right?
You be right here and make this money and be grateful, right? That you're here. And really in 2009, the recession brought opportunity. And so there were some people who ended up leaving the workforce. There were people who retired, who left to go to other companies that they thought were more secure. And I was one of the people that, because I was there, was able to slot into another opportunity that had been opened up. And that was my first job in the human resources space. And from there, my career took off.
And that's huge. Just to pause there for the historical. I mean, that's when they had the big, the crash in the economy, right? So, and then the whole internet coming into play and people buying more online. So people are jumping ship at Macy's, opened up an opportunity for you to step into your sweet spot, right? Right as things were changing, right? Your eyes were open. You're like, let me go ahead and make this money right now. In the meantime, so go ahead.
So it was great. And, and people would talk about like how millennials bounce around companies. And so as I was looking at some of my friends were like, oh, I'm working for this place. And the next time you talk to them, it's like, well, where are you working? They're somewhere else doing something else. The thing that I loved about working for Macy's, and I think why they were such a good employer for me, was I had 7 or 8 different jobs over the course of the 9 years that I was there.
Wow, yeah.
And so, I would say to people like, yes, you can leave a company and go do something else, in these other places. And maybe I would have made more money. With every move, getting 10%, 10%. But staying and playing the long game and choosing to make Macy's a career spot for me, like when I did have movement, I made really big jumps.
Right.
So it's like, well, you've started and restopped at 3 different companies.
Right.
In this time, but now I've jumped and we're at the same salary level.
That's right.
From me staying here. And I know these people, they are investing in me. I was the same age as most of their children, some of their grandchildren, right? I was one of our youngest directors when I was promoted to director at 26. And, people who had interviewed me initially when I came in, who had been my managers, the directors I reported into during my rotations, they all, had continued to invest and pour into me. And so as I moved really into my first true leadership role in corporate America, they were also right there to support me. And so I had a wonderful time there. I speak very highly of my Macy's experience, and I say to people, my pension is still there. So I'm encouraging you to shop on Macy's.com.
That's right. keep handling it. Go ahead.
I am still a Macy's shopper myself. And really for me, I think in 2015, 2016, which is when I left, I had just a number of conversations with friends and family members, and realized the answer for me was, you could stay at Macy's and be a lifer, and you love your experience here, and for the most part, you're very comfortable here, right? It had been a very nurturing environment for me, and there were so many other opportunities that existed outside the wall of Macy's that I could really use to challenge myself. And so it was that question of, are you going for comfort or are you going for challenge? Like, are you ready for that stage in your career? And I knew even then that it was going to be the difference between me kind of staying flat, with a gradual incline in my career, or really stepping into the possibility of doing something great. And so this offer from Liberty Mutual had come along, which included a move to Boston. And, the conversation I had with my dad my dad's uncle had come to Boston for school in maybe the 70s. And, you know, Boston's reputation being a racist city, unfriendly.
Yeah, man.
And all the metrics. I mean,
look, you gotta have all the armor.
You have to, if I put on the whole armor of God, like, you need the armor and the army behind you.
Right.
You can't play with it. Largest racial wealth gap in the U.S. I mean, like, just the stats here. Average family wealth for a Black family being $8 compared to $246,000 for white families. You know, so real problems. And my dad was like, you know, are you sure? You're like, are you sure, like, this is the opportunity? And I was like, well, you know, it's where my career is taking me, and I can always go, and if I don't like it, I'll leave, right? Like, and just go somewhere else. And I came and you know, started working at Liberty Mutual through my primary role, which was culture change in our organization. We were doing some work to become more customer-centric. And they had been looking for someone who had HR experience, but also had this kind of customer-facing role. They were really looking for a unicorn. And I think the benefit for me was having been in HR at America's department store, right?
That's right. So by definition, he must know something about the customer.
He must know something about the customer. And I was fortunate that I led a stores training team. And so I had done new store openings. I have, you know, and at a new store opening, everybody has to be able to do everything, right? Like, you just have to be able to jump in. So I've operated registers, I've signed people up into our loyalty program. I worked with women's shoes.
Yeah. Then you handled the world.
That was
the women are just not. Is somebody gonna help me with my shoe? I need this in a size 8. And you're like, well, lady, you need a 9.
Right. I swear, after doing that, I said I can do anything. Right. Like that was the moment I was like, okay, like, no matter what else comes my way, I survived women's shoe on a new store opening day. It was just bananas. Oh my goodness. So that was how I came to Liberty Mutual, and really connected to my primary role, and adjacent to it, Liberty had recently launched employee resource groups. And I had been an employee resource group leader at Macy's. I had helped start our Pride employee resource group for the Cincinnati area. There had been some other chapters. San Francisco, I think, was set up. New York was set up. But we were starting to set them up nationwide, and then starting to do the work to connect them together. So when I came to Liberty Mutual and had a couple of conversations with people, they were like, oh, you know about ERGs. Okay, great, right? Like, so we're gonna put you to work. And so started, you know, volunteering on a committee, would come to a couple of programs. There was a role on the board that opened up, and they asked me if I would fill it. And so then I joined the board. And then about a year into that experience, one of the people who had been the national chair had been promoted. And she had moved into this greater role that was pulling her just much more. And so she said, well, I need to transition out a little earlier, but we'll still be here, still be a supporter, but just the day-to-day operational things, like, you know, just can't really manage that anymore. I don't want to be missing in action. So asked me to step into the national chair role.
Oh, wow.
And so I did, and I did that for 3 years. And that was amazing, traveling across the country. And it was for our African descent employee resource group. But we worked very closely with all of our employee resource groups. And so it was a lot of fun. It was also deeply frustrating at times. You know, when you think about the financial services industry and insurance in particular, people don't, like, it's not the industry and the work environment that you think is going to be very exciting. You know, and some of the legacy things of how financial services operated were still at play. And so that whole piece on, like, being human at work and what does that mean to bring your whole self to work? We were really challenging some notions. Even having employee resource groups, I think initially people were like, are we ready to do this? Like, are we set up climate-wise and organization-wise to do it? But leadership supported it. And down the line, managers started supporting it as well in the organization. And then we saw some early wins from what the employee resource groups were doing. And so it helped people get on board sooner rather than later. And so it was fantastic. What's interesting is because I traveled in that role, most people at Liberty, if you ran into somebody at Liberty and they knew me, they would say, oh, he worked in D&I. And I didn't work in D&I. I worked in our customer advocacy office, but like that was the job that paid me, you know.
That's right.
But you know, our D&I office, and I'm just grateful to our leadership there, very much was like, we can't do this by ourselves, right? Like there's 10 of us working over here in this office, like to transform a company with 30,000 employees in the US, 50,000 around the globe. Like you need more people, you need ambassadors, and you need people who are carrying forward the message, and you know, monitoring for the hot spots in the organizations. That was one of my roles, and I really enjoyed it.